Welcome to Flutter. First off, what is Flutter? Well, it's new. It's Google's mobile UI framework for crafting high-quality native interfaces on iOS and Android in record time. And let me tell you, development in Flutter is fast. And when I mean fast, I mean very quick. Compared to other frameworks out there, it's a breeze. If you want to know more, visit flutter.io and read on their actual documents and support pages. Also, visit YouTube and look for Flutter. You'll see there's a lot of videos out there and it's getting a lot of steam very quickly, even though it's brand new. Be sure to check out this video by these two young ladies. It is a very good video. Also, check out my videos, Void Realms. I have 41 tutorials out there. We're going to be using Android Studio. Now, I want to preface this with, you can also do it in iOS, but we will be using Android for these tutorials. There's nothing stopping you from doing iOS. Flutter will work seamlessly across both. To work with Flutter, you're going to need to know how to use Dart. Dart is a new programming language, and I have 3 courses out on Udemy: the beginner's course, the intermediate course, and the advanced course. It's recommended that you take all 3 of those before you attempt to take this Flutter course. So, what does Flutter look like? Here's some Flutter code, and as you can see, it's not that complex. This is an entire application all in one file. And this is what the application actually looks like when it's running. As you can see, it's very responsive. Flutter compiles down to a native application, so there's no cross-rendering. And Flutter has blistering fast garbage collection, which makes the application extremely fast. Alright, in this video, what we're going to cover is, what is this? An update. I don't have time for updates. I'm trying to get some stuff done here. So what we're going to cover is another update. So what's really going on here? Well, if you've worked with software at all, you know that, well, it has to be updated. What's going on under the hood is developers have either A, added new functionality, B, made things better, or they've actually fixed bugs, unintended issues with the code. Sometimes those bugs aren't readily apparent until you've actually worked with it for a bit. And that's really what's going on with the newest version of Dart. There is Dart 2, and if you go to www.dartlang.org/dart-2, you'll see the new version has some changes, the biggest being Dart's type system. And if you're new, this may just all be white noise, but seasoned programmers are going to understand what I'm talking about when I say type. You have to declare a type now. And if you click on this link, you'll see that the terminology sound, the terms sound and type safe are often used interchangeably. You might also see a strong mode. They're all basically the same thing that says you have to include a specific type. For example, take this code, var list equals, and then we just have a list, and then we add an integer, and then we add a string. Did you catch the problem? Is this a list of integers, or is it a list of strings? Because we've added both, but we have to declare a type now. So you'll get this ugly error message that says the argument type list can't be assigned to the parameter type of blah, 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 whatever it is. Really, what we're saying here is you have to declare it. And here's the correct code, var list equals, and then we've declared a type, and everything works. If we tried to add a string, you would get an error. So that's the biggest change. There's a lot of other additions and features and minor bug fixes that may come into play, but that's the biggest one right there. You can, without a doubt, watch all of the Dart and Flutter tutorials and learn the core concepts, and most of the code out of the box will work just fine. However, if you're going in, and let's just randomly pick one here, let's say you're watching a video and you're typing as I'm typing, and then when you go to compile, mine on the video works and yours does not. That's exactly what's going on. It's a difference in version and the type system. So really, when you get to that situation, just click on source code where it says resources available. It's the same thing. It'll take you out to GitHub, and I have been going out in the background and I've been updating the code whenever possible. Some other folks in the community have also updated the code, and we're trying to fix that. So when in doubt, check GitHub first. There's no reason to retype all this if you don't have to. And understand that packages, if you are just starting and you don't know what a package is, it's a body of code that someone else has written that you can use. These packages are all written in Dart, and they are also susceptible to all those changes. So I'm not trying to scare you away. I'm just trying to let you know that everything written in Dart is now susceptible to these changes. Therefore, it could break. And even if it isn't susceptible, like if we look at your launcher, you'll see in the changelog, breaking change, meaning they did something that's going to break code compatibility. Yeah, that's just one of the caveats of working with somebody else's code. If they change something, it could break your stuff. Dart is really, really good with documentation. They've got a whole tutorial on the type system, how to fix common problems in types, and it just really goes in depth. So if you're having some sort of issue, definitely check their website. But most of these videos out of the box should work just fine. If you have an existing project, definitely read this. They do have a Dart 2 fix tool, which will try to help migrate some of the usages from Dart 1 to Dart 2. And moving forward, you should use upper constraints on the SDK version, meaning, for example, SDK is greater than or equal to 2, less than 3, meaning this only works in Dart 2. That's the correct way to do it. You're naming a specific version. If you say something like this, greater than or equal to 1.2, but less than 3, that means this starts working in Dart 1 and Dart 2. Do you see the problem there? That is now susceptible to this sound change that we're talking about, where you have to actually declare the type. Now, if you're brand new and you're starting with Dart for beginners, a lot of what I just said makes zero sense. Just understand that if you're following along in the video and you run into a problem, check the source code. There's no reason to retype everything. And if you're using a package, or if you're following along in, let's say, like Flutter Advanced and something's not working, you're going to have to check the package. They may have changed something as well. And they may also be susceptible to some of the Dart changes. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. Sometimes it's a little painful, and sometimes these changes are major, but most of the time the changes are so minor you don't even know they exist. All right, the first step is to download and install Android Studio. Visit developer.android.com/studio and download the Android Studio version that's right for you. Once it's installed, go ahead and run it. You'll get this window right here. From here, go to Configure and SDK Manager. The SDK Manager pops up. I would recommend downloading a few different SDKs. Android's a little bit tricky sometimes when it comes to differences in SDKs. Try to go with a newer API version, but you don't necessarily need the newest, latest, and greatest. Personally, I'm using Android 8 through 5.1 for testing. Next, go ahead and start a new Android project. Just leave the defaults. And you don't really need to change the SDK, but you can if you'd like. Doesn't really matter what sort of activity you choose, just hit next and finish. A few seconds for Android Studio to open. Once Android Studio opens up, click on this little icon right here. It's the AVD Manager, or Android Virtual Device Manager. It looks like the little Android guy with a phone behind it. It's right on the toolbar. From here, you'll see virtual devices, or if this is your first installation, you will not see any. Go ahead and click Create Virtual Device and create a new phone. I'm using Nexus 5X, but you can use anything you'd like. Go ahead and click Next and configure it with whatever SDK you'd like and click Next again. Give it a name and click Finish. Once your virtual device is in there, you can go ahead and run it by clicking this little green arrow here. The virtual device itself will stir it up, and just make sure it boots all the way before continuing on. This may take a moment, as these virtual devices tend to be a little bit slower than an actual phone. Alright, the phone's fully booted up and we're ready to work. Next, we need to install the IntelliJ IDE. Go ahead and download the community version. You can visit jetbrains.com/idea/download and download the version that's right for you for Windows, Mac, or Linux. Once again, this is free and open source and shouldn't cost you a dime. Once the download's complete, go ahead and run it, and you'll see the IntelliJ screen. Go ahead and click Configure and go to Settings. You're going to want to go to Plugins. If it's not listed, just type the word Plugins right here in the search box. From here, type in Flutter. I already have it installed. You should see a little button right here to install it. Go ahead and click Install, and it'll go through the installation process, and then it will want to restart the IDE. Finally, we need to actually install Flutter. Visit flutter.io, click on Getting Started, and choose the operating system you're on. I'm on Linux, but all the steps are pretty much the same. Follow the directions and run the command line. When you're done, go ahead and open up command line and type Flutter Doctor. Flutter Doctor is an awesome feature that lets you know exactly what's going on with your Flutter installation. As you can see, I'm pretty much good to go. I've got Flutter, I've got the Android toolchain, I've got Android Studio, and I've got IntelliJ Community Edition installed, but I have no connected devices. Don't worry about that. That'll be available once you start an Android virtual device, which you can do right in the IDE. Alright, by now you should have Android Studio installed, IntelliJ installed, Flutter installed, and you should have run Flutter Doctor. If there are any major issues in Flutter Doctor, be sure to correct them. Don't worry about the connected devices, it's not important at this point. Go ahead and open IntelliJ, click Create New Project, and you'll see Flutter listed on the left. If you don't, you didn't install the plugin correctly. On my system, I was able to follow the steps that I described. On some systems, you may need to go back and reinstall the Flutter plugin after installing Flutter. Go to the SDK location. If you can't find it, click Install SDK and follow the directions. Click Next. From here, you see we have a project name, and we can choose which languages the binaries get compiled down to. Hit Finish, and we're just going to build a basic Flutter application. This part can take a second depending on your computer speed. Alright, first thing we're going to do for the sake of time is start our emulator. You see how it says no devices? That's what Flutter Doctor was complaining about. Let's go ahead and open the emulator. It's going to take a moment for this to boot up, so I'm going to just pause the video for a second. Alright, our virtual device is booted up and ready to go. We're just simply going to click the Run button, and you'll see it's going to start building, compiling, and pushing the application out to the phone. While it's doing that, I'm going to cover what this application does. Here we're importing the material package. Think of the material as just like a desk in front of you. It's just a flat surface which you can move things around and work with. Then we have our main function, which calls run app. Run is the main entry point. Run app is just a function that takes this class, in this case the my app, and pushes it out. Now, Dart has what's called stateless and stateful. You can see these two here. Stateless means it doesn't track the state. State is, well, what's going on currently. For example, let's say you're married and you come home at 3 in the morning. Your wife says, hey, where were you? And you say, hey, none of your business where I was. Your wife's state is going to change. Yes, state is simply what's going on in the application. So what's going on here is we're making a new application which is stateless, which is making a new instance of the My Homepage class, which is stateful, which means it's currently tracking the state. And here we see the My Homepage state, which actually has a counter inside of it. Then, internally, we're building the graphic user interface through this build function right here. Let's go ahead and look at the program. And as you can see, here it is in all its glory. We're going to click this, and you can see the state is changing. Let's look at this a little bit. Let's say I don't like that. As you can see, when I saved it, it initialized what's called a hot reload, and the emulator updated in real time as well. You'll see these changes in real time on the screen. That's called hot reloading. It means you don't have to start and stop your application every time you make a change. You can simply save it and it hot reloads. If you make a change and the hot reload doesn't take place, you can just simply restart the whole application. And because the program's out there, it restarts very quickly. Alright, we're going to make a live template. So let's go into Flutter. And we're just going to make a new project. The purpose of a live template is actually pretty simple. While a Flutter application is quite simple, as you can see, there's a lot of typing to it. And we want to simplify this for the sake of learning. So let's move this down, and let's just Control-Alt and delete. and we're going to make a simple Flutter program. We're going to say import, and we're going to type material, and we want the Flutter material package. Once again, material is like the material of your desk. It's just a flat surface you can move things around on. Now we need to do a few things here. Say void main, and we need to make a few classes. And we want to extend a stateful widget. Now we want to make the state of that widget. So we'll say class. This little bit gets a little confusing here, so we want to kind of explain this a little bit. This is the basic flow of a Flutter application. You have a main, and in the main, we need to actually do the run app. So we're going to say run app. And you notice how it wants a widget called app. Well, we need to make a new material app. What a material app is an application that uses a material. It's a very vague concept, I have to admit, but that's how they've designed this. So think you have a material in front of you, such as a desk. On that material, you can move things around. A material app is an application that runs on that desk. We want to set the home, equals new, and we want to make my app. So what we're really doing here is we're saying run app, we want a new material app, so we get all the material goodness, buttons, icons, you name it. And we want to set the home screen. In this case, it's my app, this class here. Now, the my app class extends a stateful widget. Now, we've talked a little bit about state. State is just simply remembering what's going on. Think of it like you're driving a car. You turn the turn signal on. That turn signal is going to click at a very interval. Click, click, click. As it does, that's the state, whether it's clicking or not clicking. We need to override something here. We're going to say override. We want to create state. And we're going to create a new instance of the state class. So what is going on here? Okay, we have our application. It extends a stateful widget, meaning it's going to remember its state. But the stateful widget itself is not actually the state. Think of that. Think of the ramifications of that. You are a person. You are wearing clothes. At least I hope you are while you're watching this video. Those clothes are your state. You can change your clothes at any time you want, thus changing your state. You are not your state. The state is not you. So think of the My App as you as a person, and the state being the clothes that you're wearing. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting here. We want to override the build function, and we need to say widget, and here we go. Widget, build context, and then to do, implement a build. Let's just get rid of that to do because we're going to do that right now. What is build context? This is the context of which this method is being run. Whether it's in startup, shutdown, refresh, etc., it doesn't matter. It's the current context, and that's what we need. Now, there's a fair bit of typing here. If you don't feel like typing all this out, by all means, don't. I'm going to post the code out in GitHub. There'll be a link associated with this video. You can just simply watch me type, follow along, and then copy and paste the code as needed. All right, so we're going to return a new scaffold. Now, a scaffold is a structure on which you're going to build your material application. Think of it like a scaffold on the side of a building. There's different levels to this. The first level is called app bar, and we're going to make a new app bar. In here, we have a title, and the title we want to make a new text. And if all of this is very confusing, don't worry. We're going to cover all this in future tutorials. Right now, we're just building a template. So the first level in our scaffold's app bar. In the app bar, we're making a new app bar and then filling in the widgets. Notice how the title is this widget. We're saying new text. We're not just saying dot dot and then hello. We're actually saying make a new widget and put it in there, meaning we can put any type of control we want in there. Now, if at any time you want to know what you can do, hit Control and space, and you'll get a list of things that are appropriate for whatever control you're currently in. So we want to select the body, and we want a new container. Once again, Control space, and you can see a list of things. First thing I want to do is I want to actually set the padding. And we're going to say new edge inset all, and I'm just going to set this to 32.0, which is a double. Control space again, and you see how there's a child. Get very familiar with child because it's a repeating pattern. It's a design pattern. So the child of this is going to be a new center. That may be a new concept for you. You're like, wait, what? Center is actually an object? That's correct. You're making a new center. You're not just saying center this. Then in the center, we are also going to make a child. That child is going to be a new column. Now you notice how column has children, meaning it can have multiple. And it's just a list of widgets. A widget is pretty much anything that you want. It's kind of the generic placeholder for an object. In here, we're going to say new text hello world. Let's go up and pull up our emulator. And you can see we have nothing running yet. Let's go ahead and run this, just to make sure there's no bugs in the code. It's going to take just a moment for it to build and push it out to the device. And once it's finally up there, we'll have hot reloading enabled and all the other goodness. As you can see, this is the basic structure of a Flutter application. We have our scaffold, or actually our material app in place. This blue area is the app bar. The body is here. We have this hello world. There are other parts of the scaffold that we'll cover in future tutorials, but right now, just focus on this. Control A, Control C to copy, and then we're just going to simply go into settings. Look for something called a live template. Be sure to select Flutter and click this little green plus icon. You want to make a new live template. Call this whatever you want. In my case, I call it tutorial. Give it a description and paste the code in there. To show you what this looks like, here's what I'm using. So it just says tutorial, Flutter tutorial. It has the code already in there. And shorten FQ names on the default tab. Just hit OK or apply, and you're good to go. What this does is when you make a new application, you can just delete everything out and type the word tutorial and hit enter. And all the code will be there right at your starting point.